So, this is our last week in our series, Signs, Divine Direction on the Road of Life. Last week, I kind of just tossed the plan out the window and we decided just to slow down. And how awesome that was. It yielded such an amazing discussion. Even the things about the day that we could never have planned were beautiful teachers for us in the process of slowing down. The noisy crowd of people that were cheering on the marathon runners helped us to practice finding our inner peace and silence when the world outside is screaming for our attention. The power going out in the middle of our discussion helped us to slow down and consider the source of our true light. But now, once again this week, I was without a plan, and so it left me wondering what sign should serve as our metaphor this morning. But the wondering has been an awesome part of this week because I've asked lots of different people what road sign speaks to them about their journeys on the road of life. And I received a variety of amazing responses. Detour, road closed, falling rocks, dead end, one way, wrong way, speed bump, curve ahead, bridge out, no parking, no passing zone, rough road ahead. I mean, when we think about all of these different signs, and if you put them in the minds of a metaphor for our journeys in life, doesn't it just kind of get your mind going? Like, oh, detour, I could see how that one relates to my life. A friend of mine said that she saw her most favorite sign of all while she was traveling with a friend, and they came across a speed limit sign where the speed limit was set at 11.5 miles per hour. How peculiarly particular. And she said she and her friend will still message each other about that. It's still kind of their inside joke, just pondering that particular speed. Landmines, bridge out, construction zone. There are so many different directions we could go using street signs as metaphors for life. Perhaps you can think of one that I didn't think of, or maybe one of the ones that I mentioned caught your attention and thought, yes, that speaks to me this morning. I hope that when we get to our discussion time that you'll share some of that. But coming out of our week slow down, I've chosen work in progress as our sign for this week. I remember seeing a t-shirt or a onesie for a kid's shirt with a message that said, "Be gentle with me. I am a work in progress." And I always loved that. I thought that that was such a good reminder for parents and adults to kind of hold our expectations for our children with a good dose of grace. But I think that this message is an awesome one for all of us because I kind of believe that we are all works in progress. And that if we start thinking of ourselves as having arrived at the finish line, being done growing or changing, that would be to our detriment. In the passage from Philippians today, Paul speaks of this work in progress as he expresses his confidence in the possibility of divine transformation. He says, "I'm sure about this. The one who started a good work in you will stay with you to complete the job." The work in progress has been begun by God, and God is going to see it through. I find that really reassuring. Paul's prayer for the church in Philippi is this, that your love might become even more and more rich with knowledge and all kinds of insight. I pray this so that you will be able to decide what really matters. Decide what really matters. The word decide in this passage is also often translated determine, and the English language is so solid. There's so much, it just is kind of set in stone, and it seems to suggest that we are supposed to choose one way over another, that there is one correct way that is better above the others. It almost suggests that we are to determine the one way from the wrong way. But this week, I discovered that the Greek actually suggests something different. The Greek suggests a process, one that is less about choosing one way over another. The Greek suggests a process that is dynamic and that involves scrutiny and testing and discernment. This is a process that requires slowing down, a process that takes time to become knowledgeable, not just to form an opinion, but to actually become knowledgeable. This is a process that leads us to ask open-ended questions rather than to offer or seek to find definitive answers. And it encourages us to listen to the views of others in a way to gain new understanding. Doesn't this discernment seem beautiful and also a little bit countercultural right now? In a word, where tweeting out the first crazy thing that pops into our mind seems like a good idea, slowing down with intention to understand not just our own perspective, but the perspectives of other people just feels like a refreshing oasis in the desert. Engaging in this intentional process, we would be driven by questions rather than by our own assumptions. This process isn't easy because it really requires a lot of vulnerability. It requires us to expand the circle of conversation. And the intent of expanding the circle of conversation is so that we can understand vantages that are not our own, so that our love might become even more and more rich with knowledge and insight of all kinds. Insight. That is what we are looking for in this discernment process. Being a work in progress means that we are not finished yet, that there is change and transformation in store for us on the journey. I appreciate the words of Cynthia Bourgeault as she describes the process of transformation. She describes it as this: transformation is the full emergence of the glory of the mind of Christ. The alternative orthodoxy begins in a view that God is not opposed to us, God is for us. How is God served by people who fail to germinate? God is delighted in every human being whose heart breaks open and blooms. Then, as human beings come into their glory, the world comes to its glory. It's a view which is inclusive, recognizing that human beings on all paths are called to glorification, the full emergence of the human being. It's evolutionary in that we are a work in progress, both individually and collectively. Creation itself is not static, but dynamic. Isn't that beautiful? This week, the colors of the trees have continued to just delight me. My neighborhood is so full of color, and I've been pondering this work in progress transformation this week as I've been observing the transformation of these trees from green to gold and orange and red and purple. God seems to paint with leaves this time of year, and I wondered about the process in which this beautiful artwork of nature comes to be. Oftentimes, the vivid colors that we see in nature serve a biological purpose, like the bright colors of the flowers, so that they can attract birds and insects that will pollinate them. But in my pondering this week, I discovered that this doesn't seem to be the purpose of the beautiful colors in the autumn leaves. As it turns out, the changing of autumn leaves tells a different story. Did you know that the yellow and orange pigments that we've been enjoying over the past few weeks have been there all along? In the summer and the spring, these beautiful golds and tangerines are all still there. They're simply overpowered by the vivid greens of chlorophyll, the pigment with the important role of absorbing the light to be used as energy in photosynthesis. But as the days grow shorter and a chill fills the air, the chlorophyll breaks down and fades away, revealing the gorgeous yellows and oranges that were already there, just waiting for us to notice. The Salt Project, which is a blog that I read from time to time, I read this week. If God is a painter of autumn leaves, then what we see is an art not of addition, but of subtraction. It's an art of revelation, of revealing the hidden beauty of what was always already there. The art of revelation. I think this is so beautiful. But what about the reds and the purples that we see? Actually, those leaves tell a different story. The reds and the purples are created as leftover sugars in certain leaves are transformed into anthocyanins. Isn't that really sciencey, John? Did you like it? Did I get it right? I don't know. With my plant scientist back there, I get a little nervous. Anthocyanins, red and purple pigments that we have been enjoying. Thanks for the cheer back there. That was good. As it turns out, the divine artist not only paints by revelation, but also by transformation, by taking the leftover bits of things and turning them into something beautiful. I don't know if the leaves this year are more vivid than they have been in the past, or if I've just been more attentive to them, but I have just been absolutely enamored this year. The Salt Project blog drew my attention to the fact that this beautiful display of colors that we see in the leaves is really entirely for the sake of beauty alone, a sheer riot of glory for glory's sake. It's a tide of splendor spilling over the world's brim, flooding the forest with no advantageous reason other than its own radiance. Wow. Nature is a perpetual, cyclical work in progress, and it reminds us just how beautiful change can be. The orange and the gold changing as the result of revelation, the result of making visible what has been there all along, just waiting to be seen. And the reds and purples created by the transformation of the leftovers. You know, as a work in progress, I find it exciting to think that God is painting both in revelation and in transformation. It's made me slow down this week and kind of ponder my own journey and wonder which parts of the change that I can see in my life as I look back on my journey have been an act of revelation, of just coming to understand what was already always there. The Spirit kind of nudging me to live into the promise that has always been uniquely in me since my creation. But then I also was wondering what kind of change comes from transformation in the way that God can take the raw materials, the leftovers, the ups and downs of my experience and create something entirely new. Either way, the work in progress continues. And I am thankful that the one who started the good work in me and in each and every one of us will be with us and will complete the job. Godspeed. Amen.